And we're on. Okay, so thanks for having me. My name is Darren Hamilton. I'll give you a little background on myself. First of all, I do a lot of presentations, not this kind of presentation, but mostly work presentations to customers and folks that I work with at my company. And I like to say when I start a presentation, I present to customers all the time. I'm used to getting interrupted. So if you have any questions, just hit the unmute in Zoom and just say, hey, Darren, that doesn't make sense. Or hey, Darren, I have a question. And I'm more than happy to be interrupted and take this wherever we need to take it. I think we have an hour, if memory serves me. That's more than enough time for lots of Q&A, so don't be shy. First of all, I'll start with who am I? So you can see a family photo up there at the top. I was born in Prince George, BC, a while ago, and I grew up in Calgary, lived there for quite some time, just over 20 years. And that's where my mom and dad took me. You can see them in the photo. And they had me and also my sister, you can see on the left, and her lovely family. And I moved away from, I met my wife there. And then we moved to Stouffville, Ontario, which is just northeast of Toronto. Small town, small-ish town, not so small anymore. And I've been here for just about the same length of time. I will say, since it was brought up before the recording, that I'm not an Oilers fan. Apologies, Jack. I am a lifer Flames fan. Go Flames. But I just got back from virtually watching the Flames get their butts kicked by the Oilers over the weekend. And Connor David is one of my favorite players. So we're all friends here. I am a father of two. You can see my two boys there. And I'm a hockey dad. So during the non-COVID winter months, I spend my weekends at the rink because I play and I also coach both of my boys. So that keeps me busy and out of trouble. And during COVID times or during the weekdays, honestly, I spend most of my time working with computers and playing around with computers. So that kind of leads me to the second point here, which is what makes me qualified to talk to you about internet security, about how to be safe online. And by the way, I'll keep this conversation positive. I'm not a fan of scare tactics. I don't think that they are impactful to people in terms of what they remember the good behaviors are that they need to maintain. So I'll focus on the positive. I will inject a little bit of what the problems are that you need to avoid out there, but I'll focus on good behaviors today. I'm a computer nerd. I've been one for over 35 years. If I'm estimating right, at the top right, you can see my very first computer that I bought myself, I think with paper route money, Calgary Herald, way back. Yeah, I see my mom nodding, got that one right. And that's an Apple IIe, which was one of the very first consumer computers back in the day, way before the internet, when people didn't go online. They bought computers because it was the next kind of fun toy, and only big businesses had computers. So I got to learn how a computer works. And I spent the next, I don't know, probably the next 15-ish years, just messing around with computers, taking them apart, breaking them, working in computer stores. And I watched the internet get born in the early 90s, or at least get popularized. The internet was actually born, just as an aside, in the 1950s. It was a military network. I think it was built by the Army. And it was turned into a university network sometime in the 60s. And so when I was in school, I was working on the university networks, which were predating the internet. And I actually had a professor who was personal friends with one of the founders of modern programming. And I took some computer science courses and got to know the history behind computing and frankly, the internet. And in my earlier days in my career, I actually trained people on how to use the internet, right when nobody knew what the internet was. So I showed people how to use email, and I showed them how to use a web browser. And I actually programmed websites when the World Wide Web was something that nobody understood. So I got to see some of the birth of it. I currently have a very large meaningless title at a software company called Tanium. And Tanium, just a shameless plug here, is a company that provides internet security, computer security for very large companies. So on a daily basis, I get to work with teams that support US Air Force and Bank of America and RBC and Scotiabank as some examples. So I get to see a lot of what goes on out there, and hopefully I can translate some of those lessons to you today. And I just got an admittance request from Allison, so I'll add Allison to the conversation here. She's joining. Okay, so let's get into the meat. And hi, Allison, welcome.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No problem. I'm just going to put you on mute just because I get distracted really easily. Oh, but if you have any questions, just unmute and interrupt me and say, hey, Darren. Okay. So I like to keep things really simple. I'm not a really big fan of slides and PowerPoint, stuff like that. I think it can be abused. So I like to talk through topics and keep things really simple and memorable. So I'm going to ask you to remember 3 things. One is computer hygiene, and I'll explain what that means. 2 is password safety. And 3 is guarding your personal information. If you do these 3 things, you don't have to really worry about much else while you're online doing all the things that you do online, whether that's on your phone or your computer or friend's device or whatever. Just remember these 3 things, and I'll go through a step down or 2 in terms of detail on each one of these items and how you can make use of some of the concepts that I'll talk about today. So first of all, what's computer hygiene? Why do I use that word? Hygiene is taking care of something. It's whether it's personal hygiene, you're brushing your teeth and flossing, whether it's hygiene in terms of keeping your work area clean. It's the same concept with a computer. Computers, for the most part, automate their own hygiene. They keep themselves up to date unless you turn it off. And one of the things that's really important, that's often overlooked when people talk about computer safety and talk about being safe online and avoiding the bad stuff, is basic hygiene. This even applies, if you can believe it, to the largest governments and companies in the world who struggle with this concept. So if you can imagine the likes of Bank of America, they have almost 600,000 computers, and they struggle with keeping everything up to date. And we help them. Well, I do my job at Tanium, but you can do a lot of things yourself that are really simple to maintain computer hygiene. One is keeping your system up to date. So on a Windows machine, if you're using a computer, laptop that runs Windows, make sure you have automatic updates enabled. And on modern Windows, you literally just click on or hit the Windows key on your keyboard and type in the word update, and you'll get to that setting immediately. And just make sure that you have the little check marks here and have everything automated. You can check for updates manually if you want. This is the most important thing if you're working on a Windows computer. What the bad guys do is they exploit people that haven't updated their computers. And they use lots of different tricks to do it, but the tricks don't really matter. What they're doing is they're exploiting vulnerabilities in those machines because they're not up to date. It's as simple as that. So keep it up to date. On a Windows machine, pretty simple. On a Mac, they're pretty good at self-updating as well. So just make sure that your automatic updates are enabled. I just want to step back here The screenshot here is from the latest version of Windows called Windows 10. If you're running an older version of Windows, I encourage you to upgrade. And Microsoft has made it really simple to get you to Windows 10 because they want everybody on that same system so that it's easier for them to provide updates. So they don't have to provide updates for multiple system versions. So if you're on Windows 7 or Windows 8, get an upgrade, get some help with an upgrade, but get upgraded to Windows 10. And then you have all kinds of really easy automated upgrades or updates that are built in. Okay, is that making sense? Good, okay. Macs are kind of the same thing. You'll get pop-ups that say, hey, your Mac needs to be updated. Would you like to update now? Don't update now because it'll interrupt your work. It'll interrupt your day, but get back to that and do an update as soon as you practically can. And if the computer asks, do you want to restart? Close everything, make sure everything that you're working on is saved and let it restart. It's really important that a computer restarts in order for the updates to apply. Also, your applications, especially your web browser, if you're using Chrome or Safari or Firefox or whatever, the application itself, in this case, it's Chrome, might give you an indication that it wants to update itself. Accept the update, accept all the updates. There used to be a time, not that long ago, when this would be worrisome and it could break things in your system. That's not the case anymore. So allow these automated updates to happen and you will be safer online. Pretty straightforward stuff. Yeah. Okay. Backups. My mother on the call here has heard me harp on backups. Backups. Never rely on your important things being safe on one computer or one phone. If you're on a Windows machine, you can do backups. There, again, hit the Windows key on your keyboard and type in backup, and you'll get to the automated backup system. You'll probably have to buy an external drive that plugs into the machine from Best Buy or Staples or wherever, and plug it in and do an automated backup there. What you'll see here on the right is what's called, it's an icon for what's called Microsoft OneDrive. It's the cloud. Everybody's heard of the cloud, right? What the cloud actually is somebody else's computer. And so when you allow your files to be stored on one cloud in Windows or iCloud on a Mac, you've got a copy on your computer and you've got a copy on somebody else's computer. In this case, it's Microsoft or Apple's. It's really useful in case your computer gets damaged, lost, broken, falls apart, whatever, that you've then got all of those really important files somewhere else, or even heaven forbid, you get something like a fire or you just something happens to the house that you're in or your location or the computer itself, you've got a recovery system that's not, it doesn't leave you hanging. Okay, so on your computer, you should have a OneDrive, if you're on Windows, folder that you can use to store things. Don't store stuff on your desktop and expect it to be safe. Store it on OneDrive or in iCloud, and that will help you in case that there's an emergency or a failure. Trying to make sure things aren't explained in too technical a terms here, because I know you're not all computer geeks like I am. So if you have any questions or it's not making sense, interrupt me. We're good so far? Okay. I'll tell you my personal strategy here is ultra paranoid, especially as it relates to family photos. I have a pretty vast array of family photos that go back to my childhood that have been scanned and digitized. And so I have them stored on another computer in my house and on Google Photos and also on iCloud and also on Dropbox, which is another cloud system. That's just me. Don't follow my lead. It's overly complicated. If I ever got sick or disappeared, my wife would be lost. But for the average person who's just using their computer, use the cloud software that's built into the machine will provide some level of safety to you. All right, and antivirus. This is a much contended topic. I used to work for a company that's on this slide, so I know this business really well. And I will tell you with a whole lot of confidence that the built-in antivirus on Windows called Windows Defender is good. And you don't need to buy antivirus software. Just turn that thing on. It should be on by default. So when you buy a computer, it's on by default. If you upgrade, it's on by default. Don't turn it off and don't buy anything else. You can, if you have somebody who is tech savvy and who says, oh, you should really use, I don't know, something on this list. Nod 32, whatever that is. Okay, well, you could take their advice if they're going to help you keep it updated and help you stay safe. If you don't have that, if you don't have a son like me who lives and breathes this stuff or access to a computer geek on the regular, use what's built in. On a Mac, it's slightly different story. You do have to get third-party AV. Mom, I don't know what you use or if what I've advised you to use, if anything, but need to make sure you get some.
You put in my computer.
Yeah, and I don't remember what it is because to me, they're all the same. They're all equivalent. I go with what's free and what I know. And it's not more complicated than that. You will get zealots out there who have a favorite antivirus program, or maybe they're like me and they used to work for one and they will say this one's better than the other one. It's not the case anymore. They're commodity, they're all the same. As long as you have something, you have antivirus. I hope that makes you feel better so that you don't have to worry too much about this concept. You'll also, if you read online, just on the topic of the security software on the machine, you'll hear, I was doing some research prior to this presentation, a lot of talk about firewalls. Make sure you have a firewall, this firewall, that. Ignore it. Your system has a built-in firewall. Windows has a built-in firewall, Macs have a built-in firewall. It's a non-issue. Ignore it. That is a 10-year-old conversation that we were in the business, we were all done with about 5 years ago. So don't even give it a second thought. Also, your antivirus software, regardless of what it is, will auto update. So it'll keep itself up to date and it'll let you know if it needs your help doing that by clicking whatever thing it needs you to click. Good with hygiene so far? Thumbs up. Yeah, any questions before I move on? No? Last chance? Okay, I'll move on.
Okay, Darren, it's Ron.
Oh, sure, Ron.
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Darren, it's Jim, and I do have a question. Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, sorry.
Fire away.
This Windows Defender, where do I find if it's on or not in my computer?
Again, if you're on Windows 10 and if you have a Windows key on your keyboard, hit that thing and just type in security. And you'll get a view of all of the security functions that are built into the system with little green check marks that tell you everything is good, and little yellow warning signs where things are not. And if
Thank you.
you see all green, everything's happy.
Thank you. So I don't need my Norton.
I'm not going to tell you not to use it, but
No, it's
I don't think it's necessary.
all right. Good. That's what I want to hear. Thanks.
Ron, you had a question?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's two questions. We have Bitdefender. It has saved many times where it's caught stuff that
Yep, that's good too.
antivirus, and we subscribe to it, and it works extremely well. I just wanted to pass that on. But the other one is the pop-up ads as you're watching a video, or as you're watching, in my case, watching the Oilers. At that point, it turns out that you get these pop-ups, and is there a way of blocking those pop-ups?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is something that I might be able to provide to you as a takeaway. It's a plugin for the browser. So you
Okay.
install it, and it connects into the browser,
Okay.
and it will block a lot of ads and pop-ups.
Perfect.
The browsers themselves have gotten better at providing that capability native. So in Windows, that's called Edge. Excuse me, Microsoft Edge is the browser software.
Okay.
So when people say they click on the internet button, that's generally the blue E. That's now Microsoft Edge. It used to be called Internet Explorer.
Great. Okay.
The newer versions of that do a good job of blocking a lot of pop-ups. Same thing with Chrome or Firefox or Safari, all these other browser terms.
Sure.
So remind me at the end, and I'll add a link. I'll send a link along with what I use.
Yeah, it'd be
That
awesome.
might be helpful. Pop-ups are a pain,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be dangerous.
Yep. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
You said you had two. Was that two?
Oh, no, yeah, that was two. The Bitdefender and the pop-ups.
Got it. All right. Good stuff. Thanks, Ron. Okay. So any other questions before I move on? All right, I'll move on. Password safety. My mom, Denise, has heard me talk ad nauseum about this topic. Use good passwords. And you're going to get, you're going to feel exhausted looking at this. But I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to give you a solution at the end. And the spoiler is it's a password manager. And I'll make that really easy for you. But do use long passwords. A lot of websites, when you log in, they'll enforce that. They'll say your password needs to be a certain length and has to contain some level of uppercase and lowercase and numbers and characters. What I like to use, this is not something that I'd say you have to do, but I like random words strung together. And the only reason I like that is because they're easier. They're not easier to remember. They can be easier to remember, but they're easier to type because we're humans. We type words because we think in words. And so it's easier for me to type in purple octopus dancer 22 with a $sign than it is some random string of characters. And yes, there's no meaning behind those words. I just was sitting there thinking, what are three random words? A color, an animal, and an action. And that can be something that's an easy trick, or something that three things that are related together, like large bouncing babies. So just pick words and string them together. It can make more sense than what a website will tell you to do. If it's too long, you just shorten it. And I'll get to the trick of password management at the end that will make this less of a headache for you. Do not use obvious words like password. I'm lazy, so I use some of these things too, and I try not to, especially the current year. When people that are trying to get into accounts brute force their way into accounts, meaning they just keep trying different passwords. They use a computer program to do that, and they focus on things that are commonly used, like the word password, like the year, like the number 123 or 1234 or 12345. We actually joke in security circles that if you use password 123456 as your password, the six makes it ultra secure. It's a complete fictitious, silly thing to say. But what we're doing is we're poking fun at the human nature of just picking things that are easy to remember, like password 123. Don't use your name in your password. Use obscure things. I sometimes use my nicknames or things that people wouldn't know. Do not use the name of the website that you're logging into. So your eBay password shouldn't be eBay 123 exclamation point. Really easy to guess. And that's the first one that gets tried, or that's really high on the list of the ones that get tried by the bad guys when they're trying to get into a whole list of accounts. And just as an aside, here's a bit into the behavior of the bad guys. What they do, they don't target you. They're not after Lorraine or Ron or Jim or Denise or Darren. They're after whoever they can get into by attacking the site itself. So when they want to get into accounts in Facebook, they target Facebook. They try to get a list of users or guess a list of users based on names, or they just try names, and then they just try as many passwords as they can. And they use computers to do that work. And some websites are also lazy and they don't stop that from happening. And it's called brute force attacking. And what the lesson to take away from that is, if you're not using things that are easy to guess, it makes it really hard for them to get into. These two passwords up here, purple octopus dancer, $22 in the other one, there's not enough computing power in the world for them to be guessed in a reasonable period of time at that length. So they're safe. But there are cases where passwords get leaked. Bad guys get into the companies that host the websites, and this can happen to the most secure of secure, and it's called a breach. And what a breach means is that the password gets leaked along with your username, and they can just at will access your account. So how do you prevent that? And that leads us to what's called two-factor authentication. And what this means is you have two things that identify you in addition to your name or whatever you're logging in with. One is a thing you know, which is your password, and two is a thing you have. And in this case, it's my phone. So the fact that I can type in your password is meaningless if I don't have your phone. And so when I log into Facebook for the first time on a new computer, Facebook says, we're going to send you a text to your cell phone number, Darren, and you're going to type in a number that we text to you. And if the bad guy doesn't have my phone, he's not going to get that text. And that protects me. What I might get is a warning from Facebook, and I've had this happen to me before, saying your password's been compromised because we rejected a bad PIN code, a bad two-factor authentication code from somebody who was trying to get into your account because they didn't have my phone. So the takeaway here is, wherever possible, if the website you're trying to get into asks you for your cell phone number, it's not because they want to call you, it's because they want to make sure that you're extra secure. So take advantage of that. Any questions about that? I know it's a bit of a techie concept. Jacqueline, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to support you on the passwords on your first comment around the good passwords. I was under the illusion that when Shaw gave me my code for my router, that it, because it was a string of numbers and letters and stuff, that was secure, and I didn't change it. And I have a son just like you, and in fact he was born here in Calgary, same year you were, and grew up here. He told me that if there's some kind of software or something that bad guys use that can run through all of those things, and he said that he watched that being used once, and within a very short period of time, that one was one of those kind was discovered. Whereas he said use a phrase, Mom, and then put a number and an exclamation mark at the end. So something like my grandkids are the best. And he said and that's a really easy thing for me to remember now. So rather than have all of these other types, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's good advice. But one thing I'd add to that is, and that actually leads into the second or the third topic here, is password hygiene. Never use the same password in 2 places. I know this is hard. This is hard. How I keep track of it is on the bottom there. You'll see on the left all of these different password manager programs, some of which work on your phone, some of which work on your computer, some of which work on both, that will keep track of all your passwords. I literally have over 500 passwords. Each one is unique, so I use some software here. On the right, a notepad. Write them down. As long as you don't bring the notepad around with you, keep it somewhere safe in a drawer in your desk. That's better than sharing passwords between systems, between websites. Sharing passwords between websites is extremely risky. If one gets compromised, they're all compromised. And good luck remembering where you've used your password multiple times in multiple places and finding all of them. It's not practical. I can't remember all of them. I can't even remember a dozen of them. So my advice is to use one password one time on one website. It's hard, but keep track of them. Does that make sense?
Darren?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's Jean. I have a question back to your comment about the cell phone.
Sure.
I belong to an organization that does that. We log in and it sends a message to our cell phone. Now, I think I sort of missed, were you saying that that is very secure or not very secure?
It is secure. It's more secure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Definitely do that if you can. Take advantage of that if you can.
Right. Thanks.
Yep.
Question, Darren, it's Ron.
Sure, Ron.
I just discovered today I had not called MasterCard for a very long time. And what they do now to make sure it's you is that you go through the motions of the card and enter the card and all that. Then they magically send you a code on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody calls you to let you know, okay, well, what's the code we just sent you? It's fine and dandy if you're at the computer, but if you're not, that's a real challenge because they anticipate or believe that you're at the computer. I believe that that's good security because they know they're talking to the right person. But today, what I found out is MasterCard is looking at biometrics, meaning either thumbprint, fingerprint, or even the iris.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the person I was talking to said, yeah, this is the new tech information that's coming up for MasterCard. Do you know how far we are with biometrics at all?
Yeah, my phone, for example, my iPhone uses Face ID, that's biometrics. My old one used a thumbprint, that's biometrics. What you'll find, at least in the current state of the world, that no company will rely on biometrics as its only means to authenticate who you are, because
Okay.
they have to assume that you don't have access to a device that gives them a biometric indicator, fingerprint.
Okay. Sure.
So I think biometrics are great for authentication. And the natural thing to think is, if you're using your thumbprint to sign into a website, that website has your thumbprint on record. And if they ever lost it, you would be compromised. And somebody could use that against you. That's not the case. So what actually happens, without getting too technical, is that the device will convert your thumbprint into a signature, into a string of numbers that is tied to your device, and send that to the website and say, this isn't just Ron, this is Ron on Ron's iPhone.
Right. Okay.
So what they have is meaningless unless they have your thumb and your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Same thing with an iris scan. Except if it's the Canadian government and you're signing up for Nexus, they absolutely do have a copy of your iris print, which worries me to death. But that's the price of convenience.
I had heard quite a few years ago from a dermatologist that as you age, your fingerprint actually is not as visible as the skin just sort of fades away. That could be a problem for seniors. I'm including myself in that.
I haven't heard that problem because the patterns don't change and the computers look for the pattern.
Okay.
Even if the pattern is warped, for example, if you're holding the phone a different way, or even if you burn your finger and the thumb and the fingerprint comes back, it will be the same.
Okay.
So from a computer's perspective. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Sure. Okay. I'm good.
I've literally never heard of that being a problem. Good to speculate on, but I haven't heard evidence of that.
Well, thank you.
Sure. Good questions, by the way. I like a lively crowd. I cannot emphasize this point enough. I think I beat it to death though, but making sure that you use good passwords and don't reuse them is really important. Guarding your personal information. This to me is question.
Yeah, I heard about putting everything in a vault. What does that mean?
That's essentially, Allison, this software down here, this list of names.
Okay.
LastPass, 1Password, Keeper, RoboForm. These are all software packages. They're programs that you can buy or download that will store your passwords securely for you.
Right. Is that necessary or?
Necessary? No. Convenient? Yes.
Okay.
I personally use LastPass. It's not cheap, but
It's not cheap, did you say?
Yeah, it's not cheap, but I have, like I said, over 500 passwords. Plus I manage passwords for my mom and my family. So I do what's most convenient for me, easiest to manage. I've heard 1Password is very good. I don't have much experience with the other ones.
Okay.
Just so you know, Allison, I use that LastPass every day.
Really? Okay.
Because I don't remember all those passwords.
No. So what about when you have, like, if I go on to a place that I advertise rental property on Rent Faster. So that's when I go to log in again, it's already saved in my computer. And that's okay?
That's okay.
Okay.
Yep. So what's happening there is similar to how the cell phone works when you get a text, is the computer is recording that I've been to this website and it stores that locally,
Mhm.
and it creates an identifier that says, and I logged in Allison successfully, and shares that with the website. And so the next time you go to that website, the computer says, hi, remember me, I'm Allison's computer.
But I should make sure that I don't have a easy password on there. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think I have something pretty easy, so.
Yeah, so it's the website password that I would make sure is secure in line with.
Yeah, and then you don't have to do anything with it again once you've changed, like, once you've got a
That's
good one
right.
on there. It just,
That's right.
okay, those are okay. Okay, good.
Yep. When you log in, some login pages will have a little checkbox that says, remember me,
Right,
use that.
okay,
That's safe.
okay.
Okay, so to explore that a little further, I'm online on my TD Bank account and I log in and I'm doing whatever I'm doing. There's an option that comes up that says, save this password or something, remember me, something like that. I have been absolutely terrified to do that.
Do it. It's fine.
Really?
Totally fine.
So, one more question, sorry, and I'll mute myself if that's okay. If someone had told me, this is of course years ago, is that when you finish your banking, you should then go up in and clear your browsing history.
No,
No need?
no need.
Okay, okay,
No need.
good to know.
As long as if you go back into my presentation and you keep your software up to date,
Okay,
so that nobody can compromise your web browser and get at your passwords.
okay,
The browsers have inherent security to prevent that.
okay,
Now, the bad guys find ways in, and that's where the updates come in, is the creator of the software will see how the bad guys are getting in and fix the holes. It's literally my current job is fixing holes in our software. It happens all the time. Software is built by humans. Humans make mistakes. Bad guys exploit mistakes.
That brings up a question about not using your own computer, like being at a public library or some other public place. Should you not clear your browser after that?
I would absolutely do that after that.
Okay.
Clear your browser history. Do not check the remember me, because they're remembering the computer, not you.
Right.
And that computer is not you. It's not yours.
Question, Darren.
Sure.
LastPass, is that a software that you buy at Memory Express, or is that at Best Buy, or do you
Online.
get it online?
Yeah.
So you just enter Google LastPass
Well,
and
LastPass. Yeah.
and then it says download or whatever? Or?
Yep.
Okay, sure. I had never heard of this before, so that's good. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm not at all affiliated with LastPass.
Yeah.
So I just happen to use it and like it. 1Password is arguably better. I'm just used to LastPass. I would probably try with 1Password if I was a new user.
Sure.
It's also
So what does that do? It just stores your password on the computer?
So this is going to sound really weird, but it works like a vault, to Allison's question, where you log in with a username and password into the vault, and then that opens up everything that's in the vault. And so the software will actually, if you want, log in for you into the websites. You just click the software and say, oh, I want my Facebook access. You click on Facebook in the software in the let's say it's LastPass, and it'll open up and log into Facebook for you.
Wow.
It's pretty slick. I use it. I like it. You have to remember that 1Password, though. If you lose that, you're sunk. You lose them all. You have to change them all. But I think it's great.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So just a couple more last topics here, and then we can keep the Q&A going. Regarding your personal information, this is really important. Who can tell me, who can guess who the worst offenders are in terms of not guarding your personal information, in terms of a demographic.
Seniors?
Nope.
Oh, the young kids always using.
Millennial?
Younger kids and millennials. You know why? Because they've never not used the internet and they think it's just normal to give out information on the internet. And so I've drilled it into my kids what I'm going to talk about today, which is safe sharing and scam avoidance. And safe sharing is simply this: everything you post online or in an email is public. If you behave like that, you will be safe. Simple as that, including email, by the way. Do not send personal information like credit card numbers in an email. It is not secure. I literally had, I think it was my accountant. No, it was a law firm that I was working with asked me to send my social insurance number in an email. And I said, are you kidding me? No. That's public information when it goes out in an email. Emails are not private. Websites are not private. If you post something to a website, now granted, if it's a bank that you've logged into and you're posting financial information and it's, you know, you're logged in and secure, that's a different story. But social media, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, all that stuff is public. I've actually not hired people, because I'm a hiring manager where I work, because I've gone online and I've seen some of the garbage that they put online, and it speaks to their character. So that this isn't a conversation about character, this is about safety. Everything you put online, unless you're logged into a secure website, is public. So I did a Google search on myself just for kicks. And there, if you scroll through the pages, you can see stuff that I put online literally in the 90s that still exists somewhere. Nothing is safe if you put it online. No photos, no text, no personal information. So just behave that way, especially on social media. You'll be fine. And scam avoidance is also a really simple thing. Anybody who asks you for anything is suspect. Anybody who asks you for anything is suspect. Hey, would you click on this link? Hey, would you download this file? Hey, would you open this PDF? Hey, would you call this number? Hey, would you send me your birth date? No. Delete. If you didn't ask for it, somebody is trying to take something from you. Even if it comes from me, I shouldn't be asking you for anything. That goes for you, Mom. So.
Okay, I'll just ignore you from now on.
Just so the way that I put this into terms in a banking context as a consumer is a bank will never contact you to get information via email. I have a really good example here. This was sent to me. This is not the exact one that was sent to me, but I got a copy of this one. And it was BMO. Actually, in the case that it was me, it was actually one of my banks. In this case, BMO sent quote, BMO sent this email that says, click here to start the enrollment process. And people will say, well, look for spelling mistakes. There's one in this case. Or look for bad links, hover over links and look for bad things. Great. The bad guys are still really crafty. And the one that they sent to me last year, I'll never forget this, was so good I clicked it. I'm in the business. I'm a security and internet security engineer for all intents and purposes. and I clicked it. And I immediately closed my web browser and realized and slapped my head and went, oh my gosh, anybody can be fooled. Just remember, don't click on anything anybody sends. In the worst case scenario where you think, oh, I think I might want to click on this thing. Mom, you do this to me all the time and I think it's great. Give me a call or send me a text or reply to it and say, hey, do I really want to do this? And challenge the sender. And if it's somebody you know, if it's not somebody you know, just delete it. What banks will typically do if they need information from you and they want to send you an email is they'll include a phone number that you can verify. Look on the back of your statement, look on the back of your credit card, and call the bank and say, hey, I got this email. Is it legit? Do you actually want this information? And they'll confirm or deny. That's how they tend to operate. If they're not operating like that, it's probably not legit. And I'll end with, I'm here to help. There's my email address. So if you do have any questions, by all means, send me an email. I'm probably not going to be able to help you with your computer and your particular situation, but I can give you advice or direction. More than happy to. So Darren spelled badly because my parents named me after a singer instead of how people normally name children.
But it's a great name.
It is. Just the way it spells it right.
Yeah, you know why that happened? When he was born, he was going to be Richard, and I looked at this baby and said, this is no Richard.
And Bobby Darren happened to be in the paper that day. So that's all I wanted to share. You guys have asked some great questions. I'm more than happy to answer any more before I have to go and do some barbecuing because the weather has finally turned.
Oh, Darren, you're going to send us a link of how to block the ads?
Yeah. I'll actually, if I can put something that you can Google, this will be a little bit of me teaching you how to fish.
Sure.
In the Zoom chat, there is something called uBlock Origin. No, oh, it auto-corrected. It's called uBlock. I'll put it in all caps. I'm not yelling, so that it doesn't autocorrect. uBlock Origin. It's a browser plugin. It's extremely safe. It's used by security professionals that I work with, and it's an ad blocker. I use it in Chrome, which is my browser of choice, but you can use it in other web browsers too. It's really good.
So you just Google that and then you download, or?
Yep. Download it. It'll ask you to install it into your browser. Say yes. And then it'll block a lot of that garbage. Not all of it, but most of it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Welcome. I know that's a pain in the butt for everybody. What other questions do you have?
I just had a comment, Darren. It's Dave. I had a while back an email from Netflix saying that they were sorry to see me closing my account, and
yeah, I got that last week.
And what I've done, I've had that a few times, but I tell that to my wife. I said, don't ever click. Just go onto the internet and go on the website. Check that way.
Go to netflix.com, check your account. Everything I guarantee will be fine.
Yeah.
And delete that email.
Yeah, because that's been going around quite a while, that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I literally just got it again. It's good. It looks legit.
Yeah.
They're asking you for something.
Darren, I downloaded Adblock quite a couple of years ago. Would you suggest stay with it or use uBlock?
Adblock actually had some problems. I can't remember specifically what they were. I can't recommend them in good conscience.
Okay, thank you.
That's the one I used to use too. I think they were selling some information to somebody. It's really
Aha. Yeah.
You know, here's the thing with free software or free websites is they have to make money. So if they're not selling you a product, you are the product. They're making money off of you. In the case of Facebook, Google, Instagram, it's advertising. They're advertising to you.
That's why they're so rich.
Google is an advertising company. I don't know if people know
Yep.
that, but that is their business. I work with Google directly. They say they are advertising. They're not a software company.
So Darren, where do you see the future of technology going? Because the weird part is I've been in accounts receivable for very large corporations, and currently I find myself unemployed. And just last week, on an ad I found, which was legit, it says, "Do you have this new technology?" And I've been in the field for 30 years, and I go, no. And then they say it's mandatory, and it was called the Microsoft Dynamics 365. I just cannot keep up with the technology myself, and I have no idea what Microsoft Dynamics 365 is, but apparently it's the flavor of the day, and you need to have it. So I don't know if what your take is on that.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of Microsoft's corporate productivity software suite. And that is also the software that people use to do their work is always evolving. And you know, the word processor you use today or the spreadsheet you use today is not the same one you used 3 years ago or even 2 years ago.
Exactly.
That will always evolve. The real revolution that's happening is mobile computing, reliance on phones, and also smart devices like smart lighting is a really prime example of that. Cars with web browsers built into them.
Wow.
Those present a whole new set of challenges, mostly for the companies that provide those systems. They're not anything for the average consumer to worry about, although I will say that a lot of the voice recognition platforms that are out there, like devices that listen for OK Google or Amazon Alexa or Siri, that worries me. I don't enable those things. I don't want anything listening, not because I think there's somebody on the other end that's listening to my conversations. It's because I don't know what's being stored and how it might be used. And it's that
very good point.
Certainty that I like to be paranoid about. And I think that's a good level of paranoia. It's also about,
whoops.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this has been really, really fantastic. And we certainly don't want, you know, must be getting dark in Toronto.
Yeah, almost too dark to barbecue, so I got to get out there. I've got some.
Yeah, I mean, I lived there twice, and so I know it gets dark pretty quickly. Not only the governments, but you know, the outside, and so we do want you to be able to see your steak.
Sure.
And make sure it's not.
I'm glad I could help you folks. I hope that it was meaningful to you. I'm going to stop the recording.